Hey guys, Canuck here. Welcome to another episode of Course Design 101. First off, apologies for my voice might sound a little off. I am fighting off the tail end of a cold here, which has been pretty nasty, but I am feeling a lot better and on the mend, which is a big reason why I haven't been streaming much, and the channel's been a little quiet these last few days. Just haven't been in much of a mood to do anything, but we're slowly coming back here. Also, like I mentioned in my announcements video, a couple new things. We now have our Crazy Connect Designer Society. You don't have to be a designer to join, but Xbox, PC, PS4, we're going to be playing all the top courses each week on the TGC Tours difficulty presets as well. And I've set up a Patreon, so if you want to support me a little bit more, and I will give back to you by doing some extra course critiques, things like that, maybe a few behind the scenes kind of insider tutorials, stuff like that. Please consider supporting me on my Patreon. But I will continue to update my channel with lots of free PGA Tour 2K21 tutorials. Now, with that all being said, we are on, I think, the last main episode for Course Design 101. We're going to talk about course settings. So this is our last main episode before we're going to put everything together, and we're just going to build a hole from scratch. So today we're going to talk about course settings. Course settings are incredibly important in how your course plays. It may be something that often gets overlooked, but if you want your course to play good on the default settings, it's really important to consider some of these settings, and we'll talk about what they can do. There's stuff that affects the gameplay directly, and then we'll talk about some settings in terms of things like lighting and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's talk about course settings first. So over on the settings tab, over in this course settings, there is a whole bunch of things that you can do. We've looked through a few of these, but I want to mostly highlight tee box settings. There's not really too much you can do other than change the tee markers and color. We talked about that already. But fairway, rough, green, bunker all have some things we have to talk about. We're going to particularly talk about the fairway firmness and fairway roll. Okay. So now this sets what your course is going to play like at default conditions. Yes, you can change the conditions when you're just loading up a match. You can make them very firm or very soft if you want. But a lot of people, maybe don't bother doing that, and they just want to play the default conditions. So it's really important you set this up how you like it, okay? Or how you want it. So for example, if you have really narrow fairways, I'm just showing you a preview of a new course I'm working on. Not close to done yet, but we're getting there. Fairway firmness, like if you have really thin, skinny fairways, maybe you don't want your fairways to be too firm. Okay, so the higher you go, the more firm they are. The lower they go, the softer they are. So that's obvious. And then roll, again, how much they roll in the fairway as well. So again, it's kind of related to firmness, but it's more related to how far the ball rolls after it's landed on the fairway. Okay, so those are a couple things to look at for changing, as well as rough. Okay, the same thing. So rough firmness, again, 0 to 1, and this is, it's not a huge thing. I wouldn't say the rough is a big thing, but like for example, heavy rough firmness. Like if you want your heavy rough to be incredibly punishing and tough to get out of. Maybe you're setting your heavy rough firmness to quite soft, so you're not getting huge bounces out of the rough. So something to consider there as you're figuring out your firmnesses. I have them set to 0.5 right now. As I do more play testing, I like to kind of see if I can dial them in a bit more, but it really depends. If you keep them at 0.5, they tend to be okay, but I recommend playing around with the settings and honestly just kind of seeing what they do and how they affect the playability of your course. Greens. Now, greens is probably the most important thing in terms of how your course plays. Green firmness and green speed. Okay. So right now I have my green firmness as normal. Okay. Again, you can make them pretty firm if you want. You get up here and you're getting, they're being almost like cement, but not quite. Pretty firm greens there, and then you can get really sticky greens. I wouldn't recommend going super soft or super hard, especially with your first course. I keep it around the middle just to be safe. green speed. This is probably the biggest course setting that would really affect how your course plays. So right now I have it set at 6.5, which is right around the middle. And what you will hear a lot of the times is from designers will say, oh, these are 153 greens. And you're like, well, what is that? What's a 153 mean? Or what does this number mean? I'll show you. So right now my green speed is set at, what was it set at? 6.5. All right, so if I'm just gonna go play from here, it'll put me on the green. All right, there we go. So I want you to look in the top right left-hand corner, right-hand corner, right here. This is the distance we're talking about. This says 144. So what that number means is if I were to pull my putter all the way back on a completely flat green surface and let it go, the ball would travel about 144 feet. Okay? The higher you set the green speed, the higher that number will go. So for example, if I set it to its maximum firmness, like an 8.5, and I just drop it on the green again, let's see if that number changes. Well, it will. Okay, now it says it's 187. So these are really, really slick greens. And you'll probably also notice that because my green speed's changed, the beads around your hole are going to change too. So I would highly recommend you locking down what you want your green speed to be early on, because if you change it late in the game, you might have to find you're going to have to redo all your pins, because what used to be playable pins might become pretty unplayable with, for example, really fast greens. So just something to consider. And again, remember, these are just your default settings. So again, you can change them to slow, medium, fast green settings in game. But like I said, most people kind of just want to play with default. Okay, so I'm just going to set this back to 6.5. I kind of like a regular. I'll probably tweak that a little bit more as I move on, but I usually don't move it up to really high. The highest numbers are usually reserved for courses that want to host like major championship events or something like that. But it's really, really hard to make good playing fast greens. Not many people can do it really well, in my opinion. Okay, so that's kind of it for the kind of things that affect gameplay. But what about things that affect how your course looks? So as you can see right now, my course is in the boreal theme. I've kind of got this really foggy, hazy kind of look. Okay, and my sun is fairly low into the ground, or low on the horizon. So how do I get those looks? So you're going to go to your environment. Okay, and the two big ones we're going to look at is lighting and weather. So lighting, there's three different things to look at. Time of day, that really changes where the sun is in the sky. Okay, so obviously it's going to move across as you go from day to night. Okay. Orientation is where the sun is in the sky, kind of around. Let's see if I can show you as an example here. I'm just going to move the sun way up so we can see it. Where are you, sun? Kind of tricky to do sometimes. Where are you, sun? Oh, there it is. Behind a cloud, that's why. All right, so if I change the orientation, okay, you can see the shadows moving. They are obviously moving around. So it's basically showing kind of the direction around where the sun is going. So 360-degree rotation. Okay, and inclination is just how high the sun is in the sky. Okay, really low, you get that really low lighting. Really high, and it's basically right above you. Okay, I would definitely recommend not going way up to like 90. It makes your course look super ugly, in my opinion. And if you go too low, then you're obviously playing in the dark, which also you want to avoid. So find a happy medium. I prefer lower, but again, that kind of, shadows are a big issue too. So low kind of sexy lighting is kind of nice. Like if I were to set like, that's kind of really nice lighting. It's right into your face, which is great on some holes. But if you turn around and look on some other holes, the lighting isn't that good. So you kind of get some really nice looking holes, and then you get some really looking holes. So if you go with the low lighting, you kind of got to keep that in mind. You set it to like kind of a, a bit of a higher number. You get nice looking holes kind of everywhere. But if you want those amazing looking holes, maybe you set your lighting lower, but you sacrifice them going the other way. So just something to think about there. Really doesn't really matter too much what you want to do with your lighting. It's your course. But try to avoid shadows, too many shadows on the green. Like, you don't want to set this really low and then, all of a sudden the green is dark, and that's going to be incredibly hard to read. So try to keep as many shadows as you can off the greens. It's not a rule per se, but something I like to do. So that's your lighting tab. And then you have your weather tab. So you can set the weather to be kind of light cloud, overcast, rainy. I tend to stay away from rain, but you can do whatever you want, or you can make it nice and clear. And these are just presets. You can alter them from there. So here you can affect how many clouds are in the sky. Okay, so there's less clouds, and here's more clouds. Okay, you can affect how high they are in the sky. That'll also affect the lighting a bit. Scale, how big they are. Definition is kind of like how defined they are, how fuzzy versus kind of harder they are. Period is just kind of like what pattern, I guess, they go in the sky. Not really quite sure, but yeah, you can play around with those. High clouds, to be quite honest, these do almost nothing. You see them very slightly, but I wouldn't waste your time playing around with this. They do very little. Rain you can turn off and on, and then you can kind of play with these. I really enjoy playing with the haze, light, or fog and fog density and fog ceiling. So it's kind of fun to play with some fog. Add a little haze in here too if you want, and then you can set how high you want the fog to go as well. So lots of different options you can do with fog there to really get that cool look. You can also get a cool nighttime kind of look if you want. If you set your haze and your fog to set all this to 1, you can get kind of a nighttime look. I'm not sure if that's gonna be great, but yeah, I kind of just that was something we weren't able to do before, but you can kind of get sort of night golf there, I guess, if you want, if you set them all to 1, but I probably won't be doing that. But yeah, anyway, those are some things you can do to make your course play and look exactly like how you want it to look. So I think throughout all of these tutorials, we've pretty much covered all the basics, and we've definitely just covered the basics. We've barely scratched the surface. So Course Design 101 is going to finish off with basically you trying to put everything together and almost try to copy what I do. So what we're going to do in the last episode, or I might break it into 2 episodes, is we're going to build a par 4 together, and I want to see from you guys, hopefully you post some pictures, send them to me. I want to see how close you can get to the par 4 that I'm going to build on video. I want to see how close you guys can get by working on the tools. So that's the plan for the final episode, which should be coming up fairly soon. So that's it for course settings, and we'll kind of consider that your final exam for Course Design 101. As I look forward to seeing you then.